Welcome to the live CMA class. This is the first time that I've done a live CMA. So bear with me. I'm going to warn you that we're going to go somewhat fast so I can fit everything, all the content into the time that we have today. But feel free to put, either unmute yourself or put questions in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those as we go along. But I'm going to jump in here to MLS in just a second, share my screen, and we're going to walk through a complete CMA start to finish. So let me start sharing here. All right. Hopefully you all are doing well today. Weather's not cooperating. I wish it was as beautiful as yesterday, but I guess it's a good day to be inside watching somebody do a CMA. All right. So quick question for you all. I just want you to put in chat real quick. I know we've got kind of a variety here of experience levels. I want you to throw into chat if you've not ever experienced a CMA, or if you've done a ton of them or are just here for a refresher or to learn something new. Just trying to gauge who all we have on here today. So if you put that in chat for me, that'd be awesome. I'm just watching your responses come in right now. Okay. Keep putting them in there, but I'm watching them come in, but I'm gonna start going through this. So here's the scenario for today's CMA. I'm actually doing a real CMA for a real living, breathing client. And I'm gonna walk through, I've done some of the prep stuff on this. That way I can speed this up just a little bit, but as I mentioned, I am gonna go somewhat quick here as we go through this. This is a property that if you've ever been to any of my CMA classes in the past or my working with sellers classes, I talk about my process being a two-step process, which is what I prefer, especially when I'm trying to value a house that can be a little tricky. So a two-step process, I've gone to the house and I've met with the sellers, I've done a walkthrough. On this one, we did this back in January, and they had a list of things that they wanted to do on the house and to get it ready for sale. One of them was a complete down to the studs kitchen remodel that they ended up doing. And then some other things like painting, you know, replacing some light fixtures, just touching some things up. They did put some new carpet in. So I was at the house last week, kind of doing a final walkthrough with them, and now I'm ready to really drill in and give them a final valuation. I know what they want out of the house. I know kind of what their anticipated price range is. It's going to be on this particular house. They want it, you know, $450 or a little bit above. So what I'm going to show you today is how I go into MLS and figure out, is that price on target? What's our competition like? What are the stats telling us? And that way I can drill down and tell them where I think a good target would be for our list. So I am going to go into MLS here. And first thing, for those that have not done these before, first thing that I do in my process is I search for the address of the property, the subject property address. So I type in the street name and the street number. This one is at 5402 West 79th Terrace in Prairie Village. So I've typed in their street name. I don't select anything up here. And I've got 0 results. I have 0 results because they bought this property so long ago, it's no longer in the MLS system. So I want to show you, I want to kind of troubleshoot and show you how you get around that. So if you don't have anything that comes in, I'm going to come up here to the realist tax information, and I'm going to do a public record search. So in here, there's a lot of fields that you can fill out in here. First one I'm going to fill out is, I'm going to use the property address. I'm going over here to location, and I'm going to do 5402, and then again with the street name. Oop. And now down here I can see that I've got 1 match. So let's hit results and see what comes up. And this is it. So what I'm doing right now is just looking, I want to see what we're dealing with, and I want you all to see what style of house we're dealing with. So this house sits in Corinth Hills. I've got the owner name up here. I've got what Realist thinks that the property is valued at, and we're going to look at several different AVMs and see what they think this house is valued at. We've got our tax assessment down here. And then this is where I'm going to gather some information so I know what I'm comparing this home to. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so here we can see kind of what we're dealing with. The unfortunate thing with this house is because it's not an MLS, I can't necessarily see what they purchased the house for. But if I scroll up here and look at my history tab, I can get a sense as to what they have on mortgages on the house, which is good information when you're going in. This is the information that I like to pull on my first step. Because I know as I go in, what kind of conversation I'm going to be having with them. I like to know how much they owe on the property before I even walk through their door. So some of the stuff that I'm showing you right now are things that I do before I even walk in their door for the first time. You've got your parcel map up here where I can kind of get a sense as to where it sits, if this will cooperate with me. This gives us lot dimensions. I like scrolling out on that just so I can kind of see where this property sits. Again, we've got our satellite view. I can do a street view. But I like looking at this real fast just so I know if I'm dealing with something that sides to busy street, you know, has some electrical lines behind it, retail, etc. That might, you know, all those factors that might affect price. But looks like this is an interior lot, pretty common for the neighborhood. So I know that we're not going to have any issues there. So now that I've got my property information down here, I want to go back to this section right here. This will tell me what my lot size is, which is probably pretty standard for this neighborhood. What style house it is, it's a split level. And then total building square footage right here, this includes your garage. So this is not, when you put square footage or you're comparing square footage in MLS, the total building square footage is not what you want to look at, nor is it the gross area. So the gross area is going to be complete square footage, all levels of the house. What I want to look at here is our above grade square footage, the 1596. As I'm looking at comps, I don't necessarily compare houses by square footage. I kind of liken it to comparing a car by linear feet. You wouldn't compare a Yugo with a Mercedes by linear feet in terms of price. They all have different engines. They've got different interiors to them. Same with houses. So when we've got especially a house that was built in 1956, you've got a neighborhood that is older. Not every house is going to be the same. We look at square footage kind of as a baseline, but I don't really price homes by, the price per square foot. We look at that to make sure they're kind of in the right ballpark, but I don't factor price per square foot in heavily when I'm looking at comping out a house. I can see, let's see, down here we've got our basement square footage, and then the finished basement area is 360. So I know total living space, I'm dealing with about 1,900 square feet on this. So now that I've got my property information, I can pop over and start searching for comps. And I'm going to open a second tab. I'm going to just right click here and hit duplicate so we can keep our property information up here. And then let's take a look. First thing I want to do before I start looking at the neighborhood is I want to look at our stats. I want to see what's happened in the neighborhood with values. What are our average list price in the neighborhood for the last 5-10 years? So instead of going to search up here, I'm going to go to stats. And don't worry, I'm going to go through this fast on stats, but I'm going to do a complete video, a kind of a short tutorial on how to do this. So no fear, I will cover you on how to do this portion. But I'm in the stats tab up here. and I want to look at a historical sales price trend. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to come up here and hit customize. Excuse me. I do want to look at the past 10 years. And I want to group by primary year. I just want to get a sense as to what's happened in the last 10 years. Somebody put in chat, how did I open the second tab? I just clicked up here on the tab. I right-clicked here with my mouse and hit duplicate, and it'll open a second tab for me of exactly what I have pulled up. So it's kind of handy when you're in Matrix so you don't have to flip back and forth constantly or stop what you're doing. It's a nice little trick I like. Okay, so I've got my presets. My historic price trend is up. I'm looking at the past 10 years. I've got everything set there. So now I need to come over here and I'm going to put in the subdivision. I'm going to do Corinth Hills. That's all the criteria that I'm going to put in here. I just want to see what values have done in the last 10 years here for this property. So I'm going to hit generate. And I get a nice line graph that shows me last 10 years. And then I like pulling this tab up here, which is your actual data. So I can get a real good sense here of what the median sales price is for each year. And you can see how it's grown at a pretty good clip. It looks like in 18, it went down just slightly. Looks like it had a little bump there in 17 and then went back down and now is back up to 507. So knowing going in that they want to price this house around 450, I know that we are probably pretty safe. We're not going to be at the, if the median so far in 2020 is 507 and we list this house at 550, we're not at the very top end or over, the median sales price. So I know that we're pretty safe there. But I like showing these stats. I like pulling them into my listing presentation. They're not real fancy when you print them off. I'll show you what it looks like. If I hit print, I always hit the show tabular data. So you see the graph and the data right underneath it. And this is pretty much what it looks like when it prints out. It's not real fancy, but it does the trick. Before I go on and start searching, start looking for my comps, does anybody have questions? I'll pause for a second. Does anybody have questions on the reports and how I use those as I'm pricing a house? All right, I don't see any coming over here in chat. Close that. All right, let's go back and start looking. Somebody asked, let me reopen that. Somebody asked how I print that. So from right down here, I want to show my tabular data, and then I hit print. And it prints just like this.
Can you save it soft copy too, to put into your soft copy?
So I just, on my computer, I go to more settings and then open in a PDF preview. I don't think it'll show that on my screen because I'm only sharing my my Chrome right now, but it'll open in a PDF, and it is color to some extent. It's not the prettiest, but I like it. It's a great visual just to be able to show them.
Yeah.
As opposed to just telling them numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there's some other stats that you can pull in here. That's the only one I'm going to show today, but there's some other things that you can pull and get a little bit more detailed and, cross-pollinate with days on market and all sorts of, list to sell price. There's all sorts of awesome, I could spend 2 hours teaching you all how to pull stats, but I'll bore you to death. Okay, so I'm going to go back and search here. We're going to go to search and I go to detail. And right now I just want to get a good sense as to what activity has been like in their neighborhood. I start small. I start with neighborhood and then we're going to work our way out from there. But I start as small as I can, especially as I'm doing this to pull in comps that I'm going to use in a CMA. So I'm going to start just with neighborhood. I pull active, contingent, pending, backup, and sold. Put neighborhood in here. And I pay attention as I'm doing this, I pay attention to what my count is down here. So usually I type in last year first just to get a sense as to what activity has been like in the last year. We've got 40 matches. I'm not going to pull 40 comps in here, so maybe I want to look and narrow that down just a little bit. Let's see what the last 6 months, how we do on our count here with the last 6 months. Now we're down to 25. That's a little bit more manageable, and they're the most recent comps. So that's where I want to start, is with these 25 that look like they're going to be the most recent just for the neighborhood. So the way this sorts, up at the top, we've got our active. There's one active right now at 585. We've got our homes that are under contract and backup and pending here. And then right here, we start our sold properties from the last 180 days, and they're sorted here by price. So typically, if I'm comping a house, the first thing I look at when I come in here, I look at our mix here. If I have an overabundance of active homes and not very many under contract, I know that maybe we're having an issue in this neighborhood with homes moving. It looks like they're obviously with one active, and we've got what, 6 under contract. Looks like we're in pretty good, or 5, no, it is 6. Sorry, I can't count today. Looks like things are moving pretty well. Next thing I come over and look at, I know that we're dealing with a side-by-side split. So I like to come over and look at plan here and see what are our side-by-side splits, where are those falling? You know, we've got a pretty good range here, big range in sales prices. So my sold prices that start here, we've got from basically 320 up to 625. That's a huge range. So I come over here and look at, okay, where did the side-by-side splits fall in this range? And then look at the bedrooms. You've got a variety here, anywhere from 3 bedrooms up to 5. This house is a 4-bedroom. So I know that I'm dealing with a 4-bedroom side-by-side split. As I'm looking at pulling in comps for a true CMA, while I want to look at these other floor plans, I'm really going to hone in and focus on as close to an apples to apples comparison as I can possibly get. So I want to look at my 4-bedroom side-by-side splits. That's really where I'm going to focus my energy as I come in here and start looking and seeing what I'm going to pull in to a CMA. So I'm going to look at these 2 that are under contract that are pending right here. One of them's a little bit smaller. Let's see what this one looked like at 335. I want to look, I know by this address that this sits right on 79th Street, which is a busier street. And if I look at my map here, I can see it sits right there on 79th. That's going to affect its value some. I pull up just the pictures just to kind of take a quick look at how updated this home was. Looks like it's a little dated. They do have hardwood floors throughout, which the subject property does as well. What I see in the pictures is a lot of DIY projects. Somebody else might see something different. I hope this isn't somebody's listing that's on the call. I don't want to say anything bad, which I won't. It's a cute house. Probably not going to be using that one for my comps. As I look at that, again, I've been through this house. I know what the subject property looks like. This one's probably not the best comparison. So let's see what that next one is, this 550. That's obviously, the other one was a lot, you know, we're trying to hit that 450 mark. This one's obviously going to be a lot different than our subject property in a good way. And you can see here, I look at square footage. So this one is bigger. Remember our square footage, it's right down here at 1596. And then we had 360 in the finished basement area. This one's going to be a little bit bigger above grade. A little bit bigger lot size. We're going to look at map real quick, make sure it sits on, yeah, it sits on an interior, which is good. It looks like it backs to this kind of oddity. This huge green space. Bigger lot sizes over here and what it backs to. This is a different neighborhood over here. But that's definitely going to help with its value. Oh yeah, this one's really dolled up. This is cute. I can see why this one was priced. It's under contract now at 550. Well, my sellers have done an awesome job updating. It does not look as as updated as this one is. This is beautiful. Probably not one I'm going to pull into my CMA for them. Let's see what we have down here in our 375, 475 range. So we've got this one on Juniper. This is a 3-bedroom. Again, ours is a 4-bedroom. It's 2.5 baths, so the same as our subject property. Square footage on this one's a little bit bigger than our subject. Just looking at some details down below. Take a look at our pictures. Looks like they've done some updating recently. Looks like it might be a rehab property, maybe a flip. So let's look at history and see what history tells us. It doesn't tell us a whole lot. Doesn't go back very far here, does it? I'm going to pop over. If I want to see full history on this, I want to know if this was a flip or not. I'm going to pop over to RPR. RPR is a database that we have access to. It's a national property database that NAR supports. So as I look over here, what I go to in RPR is the history tab up here at the top. And I want to come down here to public records. Doesn't show us a whole lot. Boy, there's just not a lot of history on this house. The reason that I look here in public records is to see if perhaps it's sold. It was a transfer, like this was a transfer on death deed. You know, oftentimes you can get a little bit more information here in RPR. This house doesn't have any, but the public records are going to reflect potentially different than your listing records. Your public records, you'd be able to see if there was a transfer, like if it was a for sale by owner or an inter-family transfer. You would see that show up right here in prior sales transactions with public records, but not seeing much here. So it didn't give us a whole lot of information over here that I was looking for. So I'm going to go back to over to here, but this is probably a pretty good one to pull in for our CMA, for our comps at the low end. Let's look here at 475 and see what this one looks like for us. Almost identical floor plan here, I can tell just from the front. And this one was listed at 475. I'm going to go to property history. I want to see kind of what they've done with this property. It looks like they started it at 485. It was on for just over a month, and I want to see why. Looks like they maybe started just a scotch high on this. That's interesting. They've got below grade square footage at 1,800. I'm going to verify that. I'm going to pop over here to taxes. They've got basement. They must either they have finished every square inch of the basement, or the agent put it in wrong. With basement square footage, when you input your square footage into MLS, you want to make sure that you're just putting in the finished square footage. You're not putting in total square footage. So I can see right here that the total square footage of the basement is 1,810. The finished for the tax record is 608. Now they might have expanded that 608 some, but I highly doubt they have finished off every square inch of this basement. So the agent might have inadvertently put in the wrong information on there, which is giving the appearance that this property has a lot more square footage than it truly does. Total square footage there is 3,780, and it probably doesn't have 3,780 in finished square footage. Again, another reason that we can't fully rely on a price per square foot, because you're bound to what the agents are putting into MLS without doing your own investigation. Look at I take a quick look at pictures. It gives me a sense as to maybe condition that this home is in and how it compares to our subject property. Looks like it's somewhat comparable, although it's probably a little dated in comparison to our subject. This is definitely a good comp to pull in for our CMA. I like pulling in, if possible, if I can get one active that's comparable, I like pulling in one active. I usually pull in 1 or 2 that are under contract, and then 3 or 4 that have sold. If possible, I like pulling in the most recent sold. When I'm looking at houses to pull into the CMA, I'm trying to get, as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get the best apples to apples comparison I can. So I'm probably not going to pull in, even though there are homes in here that might compare that were ranches or story and a halves, I'm probably only going to compare or pull in side-by-side splits because we've got plenty here to choose from. I'm going to skip down here and look at these that are right here in kind of the wheelhouse of where they want to be and see how these compare. This one looks like it's very similar, went under contract in a day. I want to look at something on history on this one. That square footage. Oh, I didn't want history, I want tax. Okay, so what this agent has done on square footage, which I kind of thought when I saw the picture of the elevation and square footage, their above grade square footage is 1517, and they've got 364 finished in the basement. So he combined those and put that in above grade square footage. If I did the same on our subject property with our 1596 over here and our 360, we'd be at a comparable square footage. These splits can get a little dicey when you're looking at square footage and how agents input those, because they have a side-by-side split oftentimes has a family room down a half set of stairs that's typically finished. And it frustrates a lot of owners because, you know, they consider this above grade, whereas the county and an appraiser is going to consider it below grade. So agents get real creative on how they put square footage in. So you always have to double check it. This one too, 3 bedrooms where our subject property has 4. This one listed at $399,950 and sold for $420. Let's see when it sold. Really recent. So it closed on the just under a month ago is when this sold. So this is a great comparable for us. If I put this one on the market today, this is probably going to be a comparison that the appraiser uses. So definitely a good one to pull into our CMA here. So I'll check that one. Look at this next one on Rosewood. This is on for 6 days. Similar in terms of square footage, a little bit bigger than our subject. Oh, it's a BHG listing from Leslie and Bailey here. This one again, 3 bedroom, where ours is 4, listed at $460, sold at $450. I want to look at my, I didn't mean to pull up map there. I want to look at history. Looks like it went under contract very quick, which is good. The other thing that I like coming down here and looking at on our sold properties, and I didn't mention this on the other, is if you come down here, you can see if there are any financial concessions. So if the seller paid any buyer closing costs, for example, this affects the net. So this one didn't have any seller concessions or major repairs over here. So I know the true net on this was $450. I'll go back and let's see if we can find one that maybe has some information down in here. This one didn't either. And this price point, oftentimes you don't get the seller concessions like you do in other price points. Neither of those did. We'll keep looking as we go through. Let's pull this one up at $475. This is another side-by-side split. This one has that 4th bedroom, which our subject property has. Listed at $470 and sold at $475. A little bit more square footage. Lot size is a little bit bigger. I'm going to verify that square footage by going over here to tax. Yep, above grade 2000. And then our 384, very good. So this one does have a little bit more square footage than our subject. But good comparison here. Down here we've got our financial. Here's one of example here of financial concessions. So the seller probably paid $2,000, whether it was a credit for repairs or seller paid closing costs for the buyer. So the true sales price on this was really $473, but it's going to reflect up here as $475. I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay, I'm going to check this one because this is another good one to be pulling in. This one I'll look at. I probably won't pull it in because it's a 2-story, but it sat right kind of in the wheelhouse of where my people want to be, a little bit higher, did have 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. So it's going to be a little bit different animal here. Yeah, our square footage is a lot different on this one. Definitely not an apples to apples comparison. Take a look at just condition real quick. Looks like it's got a lot of original, ooh, that is some bright flooring in the kitchen. Not really a comparison at all to our subject property. Okay, as we start going up here, I'm starting to get into a price range that our subject property is probably not going to compare well to. I feel pretty good right now having two houses here that are under contract and 2 that are sold. What I want to do with these, I'm not quite ready to go into Cloud CMA yet. I've got a little bit more research that I need to be doing here. So I want to save these though, because I want to go and do some other searches. So to do that, I'm going to put these in a cart. And I'm clicking down here at the bottom next to actions. I'm clicking on carts. And then I'm going to click on this arrow right here. I have all of my clients put into here mainly because I like using the carts. This is a feature of MLS that I absolutely love using. So I've got a lot of people in here. I probably need to clean this up some, but it's for another rainy day. So they already have a residential cart that has, I can see it has 13 listings in. I don't want to mix these in. I want these to be in a clean cart. These are what I want when I'm ready to start my CMA. So I'm going to click right here on new cart. And I'm going to call this 79th Terrace CMA. And then I want this attached to my client. So I'm going to select them here from the drop down and hit save. And up here you can see that it added these 5 listings to my 79th Terrace CMA. So I told you earlier that I start narrow, I start in the neighborhood. Now I want to start branching out a little bit and really putting myself in a buyer's shoes. You know, a buyer that's looking in this area is probably not just looking in Corinth Hills. They're probably looking in Prairie Village or this zip code. So I want to do a quick search and see if there are any other houses, any other comparables that I need to be aware of or that I need to pull into CMA that might be our direct competition or one that compares well to this property. So I'm going to go back up here to search. I'm going to go detail. And we're going to pull the same statuses here. I pull active, contingent, pending, show for backup and sold. And instead of putting in my neighborhood now, I'm going to put in zip code. So I'm going to put in 66208. And what I want to pull first is just my actives. I want to see what our direct competition is. So I take that back. I'm just going to pull actives. I want to see what else is active in 66208. I can see down here there's 60 matches. So I'm going to narrow this down a little bit. I'm going to go single family. And I want to see a side-by-side split. Remember, I'm trying to get our apples to apples comparison. And now I've taken that 60 and I'm down to 3 matches. So I want to see where what houses those are. So big range here in price. We've got 230, 362, and almost 700 here. Let's look at this 362 real quick and see how this one compares. Looks like it's very similar floor plan, similar square footage. Does have 3 bedrooms instead of 4. Look at it's got a dated kitchen. Ours has a much better kitchen. You'll just have to believe me on that. A little bit more dated than our subject property, but still might be a good active to pull in. If you remember from our neighborhood search, we really didn't have a good active to pull in to show the seller what their direct competition is right now. And this one is probably, even though it's priced almost $100,000 less, than where they want to list, it's probably good to show this to them. You know, if I'm having a conversation with them saying, you know, gosh, looking at the comps, I'm having a hard time getting us to your target of 450. Here's why. This would be a good one to help justify that conversation with them. I'm just going to take a quick peek here at history on this one. Okay. What I'm looking for in history here is whether they had to do any price adjustments. And then I like looking to see when they purchased a property in the purchase price here. So I'm going to select that one. I'm going to ignore these other two because they're definitely outliers and not going to be a comparison that I'm going to pull into a CMA. But this one I want to pull in, so I need to add it to my cart. So I'm going to click on carts here again. Then I need to go down here to, here's my 79th Terrace CMA, and I'm going to hit this add to. And I see up here that I've added this listing to the cart. Okay, let's look at, I'm going to go back and refine my criteria a little bit here. We didn't get a whole lot looking at 66208. I'm going to try looking at Prairie Village. See if we get anything else here that comes up. We've got 4 matches now, so there's one that's been added. Let's see what that is. Okay, here's one in West Riding. So this is going to be a little bit further further south. Ours is at 79th Terrace. This is going to be at 88th block. And West Riding, a little bit different neighborhood. This is going to sit right on Knoll, which is probably the reason that it's priced this way in West Riding. Let's take a look at it though. It's been on for 108 days here. Square footage, we've got a bump in square footage, bump in bedrooms. I want to look at our property history on this one since it's been on for so long. Looks like they originally started it in January at 480. Haven't reduced a whole lot. Take a quick gander at pictures for condition. Looks like it's pretty cute, recently updated. I will oftentimes as well, I'm going through this a little bit quicker than I normally would. I don't want to completely bore you to death. I'm sure you're half asleep already. But I do look at the remarks down here and take a look and see if there's anything in here about updates. On this one, you know, if really on any of them, does it have a new roof? Are there new mechanicals? Do they highlight new windows? Stuff that I wouldn't be able to find out by just looking at a supplement and a disclosure. But I like looking down here to see if there's anything that they've recently updated that maybe I couldn't see from pictures. Somebody's telling me that they bought it in 2019. Let's go back over here to history and look. Yep, they bought it in 19, about a year ago. I have a feeling this is probably a flip. This is who the owner is, Royal Properties of Kansas City. I'm guessing that's an investor that's probably trying to flip this and make some money. If I'm looking at this for a buyer, I'm going to click on this MLS. I want to see what kind of condition this was in when they bought this thing. Oh yeah, they've done quite a bit of work to it. Nope, did I just close the wrong tab? I did. Go back to here. There we are. This little history tab up here will tell you a lot of good information here. So this is probably not one that I'm going to pull in. I could. We're going to put it on the maybe list. I'm going to go ahead and pull it into the cart. We'll see what else we come up with here. Okay, let's go back to our criteria here. So I've looked at the zip code. I've looked at Prairie Village. What I was looking for right there was just direct comps that I'm going to use in the CMA. But what I need to know is what is the landscape of the marketplace right now? And this isn't necessarily what I'm going to pull into the CMA, but I just need to have the knowledge of what's going on in the market. And you know, we saw what was going on in Corinth Hills, that we've got this huge, you know, range in price, I want to see how we would look from an overall perspective in these zip codes and in Prairie Village, just from a general activity, current market conditions. So I'm going to take out we were looking for apples to apples. I'm going to take out the side-by-side split. And I really just want to see what is active Prairie Village single family homes today. And there's 49 homes that are active. And I just want to take a look here and see of all the active houses where we sit, what our range is on price, knowing that they want to come in at 450-ish. I'm going to zone in right down here on what their competition might be like. Again, buyers aren't just looking at side-by-side splits. They're going to be looking at ranches, story and a halves, 2 stories. I need to see what our competition looks like. Not necessarily to value this house, but just to have a sense as to what the current market looks like. You can see of our, we've got 49 homes in here, anywhere from 225 up to almost 2 million. Huge range here. So we don't have a ton here in the 400 range, but I want to just take a quick peek at these, just see how long they've been on the market. This one's been on for quite a few days here. Single car garage. It's going to be a much smaller house more than likely than our subject property, but a little bit further north. Take a look here at what the conditions like on this one. Looks like it's nicely staged, recently updated. A little bit different animal than our subject property. Take a look at the next one here. This one's been on for almost a year. This is completely different than our subject property. Completely different style home. This is a investor special here. There's the one that we just looked at a few minutes ago that's on Knoll. See what we've got here at 485. Again, single car garage, going to be a little bit different style-wise. Again, this looks like an investor special. Not on the purchase side. It looks like somebody's already bought it as an investor and looks like a flip. This is just my opinion, by the way. You all might have other opinions. I'm just kind of speaking what's in my head right now. So now we're up in the 500 range. So here's what I know after looking at those, what did we look at? 4 houses that are kind of that 425 to 475, kind of right, our subject property is going to hit right in the middle. I've got a sense as to now, if I'm a buyer and I go, I've got a price range of 425 to 475, I know how my subject property is going to compare to what's active right now. And I'm getting more and more comfortable as I look at this at that 450 range. I can justify it at this point. Okay, let's take a look real quick, see if I see anything different when we look at zip code here. We get a little bit broader sweep here. Again, we've got kind of that same, oh gosh, we got it all the way up to, yeah, we've got Mission Hills now that's pulling in. So huge difference in price, kind of every color of the rainbow here. What I don't see is a whole lot here, again, in that 425 to 475 range. I can tell here by the pink that I've already clicked on, we've already looked at these. The only one that we didn't look at is this little one here in Palisades. Looks like it's a contemporary, modern, completely different than our subject property. But again, good to look at these just so you get a sense as to what your competition's going to be like. What are the sellers, what are the other buyers looking at? What's competition going to look like? Next thing I want to look at real quick is what have buyers selected? So this is how I explain it to sellers. When I sit down and we're going through the CMA with them and I pull in active houses, one of the things I tell them is these houses thus far have been rejected by the market. They're not under contract. We don't know what they're going to go under contract for, but I show it to them and I put it into the CMA to show them what their direct competition is. I don't put a lot of weight into actives in terms of value, because at this point, those houses, like I said, have been rejected. The market, you know, buyers have not seen the value at the current price that it's listed at. So what I want to look at is our pending and backups and contingents, and get a sense as to what buyers are selecting in this price range in this area. So we're going to pull, oh, why do I keep hitting that? We're going to pull our contingent, pending, and backup here. Let's go, yeah, we can do 6, yeah, we can do the zip code. It's a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go single family zip code, and we've got 79 matches. I know that we're going to have every color of the rainbow here. So let's hone this in a little bit. And let's pull this 425 to 475. And we only have one match. Let me pull something real quick. I just want to see what our 79, how we fall here price range wise. Wow, so right down here, I get down to here, and here's where we hit our 400 mark on house 51. And what do I see? There is a big void in this 425 to 475 price range. Big void. There wasn't a whole lot on the market either. So it's, you know, as I'm thinking about that, is that an opportunity, or is it an, you know, an advantage or disadvantage here that there's, you know, not a whole lot of activity, and it might just be, you know, current conditions. There's just not a whole lot on between this 425 to 475 or 400 to 500 range really. But as we look at what's under contract here, not a whole lot here. That's pending. I'm going to go down and look at backup now and see if we see any difference down here. Okay, there's one down here. This is the one in Corinth Hills that we already pulled. I'll click on it so you can refresh yourself. This is one that we've already looked at and already pulled into our CMA. So I look at this and see an opportunity for the seller to maybe fill a void in the marketplace that exists right now.
Christian, I'm sorry, what was your search here? What were your parameters?
My search here, right down here, you can see it. I don't know, it's really shaded down here, but I pulled contingent, backup, and pending in zip code 66208 just to kind of get a wide swath. And then I didn't bracket price at all. I started to bracket price, but I had no results. So, which prompted me to see, okay, what's going on? You know, where are all these 79 houses that are under contract right now and waiting to close? What price points are those sitting at?
Gotcha.
I'm trying to get a sense as to what the current market environment, you know, what are the current conditions today?
Okay, thank you. And you're not interested in temporarily off market just because that's a temporary situation?
Yeah, I could pull that, and that might be a good thing to pull right now. It's not something that I normally look at.
Yeah.
But good thought. Let's pull that and see if there's anything sitting in there that maybe was on the market that is going to come back on. See what comes up. I'm going to just pull that status. There's 12 sitting in there in 66208. Again, we've got this massive void. Yeah. So there's not a whole lot there that's sidelined necessarily right now that's going to be coming back in.
Prairie Village is interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's fun to price stuff down there. I know that we've got some agents on that are more experienced than I am in this market. What do you all think right now from what you've seen? I'd love to hear from you. Chime in. Anyone? You feel free to unmute yourself. Nobody wants to talk. That's okay. I'll keep plugging along here then. All right, so I want you to put in chat real quick. Based on what you've seen so far, what do you think about the sellers' thought that they're going to list? And you haven't seen the property. I'm going to see if I can pop in. I asked them to text me a whole bunch of pictures so you all kind of look at what the subject property looks like, and they texted it to me right as we were starting today. So I'm going to see if I can't pull those real quick while you all are typing into chat here, so I can at least show you what our subject property looks like. Can you see this coming up?
Yes.
Okay. I have no idea what they've sent me, but let's look. This will be good. You can actually see what our subject looks like. Holy crap, they sent me a ton of pictures. I'm gonna fly through these pretty quick. This is their 4th bedroom that's up, kind of lofted. They use it for a library. I have told them they need to thin out their bookshelves. This is one of the full baths that's in the hallway. This is master bedroom. Master bedroom still. This is master bathroom. One of the extra auxiliary bedrooms. Another auxiliary bedroom that they use for an office. It's on the front of the house. Living room. Dining room. Another shot of the living room back towards the entry. Here's their kitchen remodel that they just finished. They're downstairs. So this is that space that I was telling you that sellers often struggle with when they look at square footage. They feel like this is above grade. To the left is the garage. To the right is walkout outside. So for the most part, it is above grade, but it counts on an appraisal as below grade because you have to go down at this half flight of stairs. So this is that space that sits right here that's 360 square feet that I can't include in that above grade square footage. And that's why some agents will include it in above grade square footage because they feel like it should be counted. Hopefully that makes sense. Here's another shot of that. They've got a great outdoor space. This picture does not do it justice, but they're standing underneath this huge covered patio that's just beautiful. Kind of get a shot of it there. They've got a nice little shed. This is the basement that I would consider partially finished. They've got a nice big laundry room and then laundry room. And this is, he's a musician in the symphony. This is his practice studio.
Is that a concrete floor painted?
It is, yes, it is a concrete floor that's painted. All right, so that's our subject property. I'm glad they sent those just so I can show you what we're what we're comparing here. Again, if I hadn't been in the house, if I, hadn't gone through my normal 2-step process, which it's really like a 5-step process right now, and I'm just looking at these numbers, I'd have a heck of a time trying to do a CMA and try to value this property. I have no idea what I'm looking at. There's no historical pictures that I can look at. I can look at a Google Street View. But how can I, as a professional, they're relying on me for my knowledge. How can I possibly go in there for the first time and try to give them a price on their house if I've never stepped foot in it? I have no idea what it looks like. I have no way online of being able to see what it looks like. And I'm just going to value it off numbers, off these stats right here in this box. That's going to be really hard to do and to be able to hit the mark. If I'm looking at just this, I'm looking at, our AVM up here. There's no way I'd be able to get this to 450. Anybody have any other, there's a couple things that came through in chat here. Before we move on and start pulling our comps into Cloud CMA, anybody have any other questions or any other things that you normally search when you do a CMA that I've missed?
Christian, this is Pam. I feel like I'm asking all the questions.
You're fine.
So the kitchen, we saw they took out another loan for that remodel. They did that strictly knowing they were going to move.
Correct.
I don't know that I personally would have the stomach to do that, and they did. So what value do you suppose, and with an educated guess, do you suppose they added by doing that?
I think they probably added about 25,000, 25 to 30.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just question if I've
So,
been
and
through a
I don't
couple
know, I
kitchen
didn't look,
remodels. I just
yeah, I
don't.
didn't look at detail on how much they took out, but that what they took out was not all for the kitchen remodel.
Oh, okay.
It was also for some other things that they were doing outside
Yeah.
of housing stuff. So
Okay.
that was not all used on kitchen remodel. I think
But it's
their budget on the kitchen remodel was about 10,000.
okay. So they're going to gain maybe 15 or so guesstimate.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But if you would have seen the kitchen before,
It would
it
have
is
turned people off probably.
yes, it is a huge improvement to what that kitchen looked like before. Huge improvement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have anything else that they look at? Or the other thing that I look at that I didn't show you is when I'm pulling the neighborhood stats. So when I'm pulling, when I'm initially starting and I'm doing our swath with the neighborhood, one of the things that I like to pull, I'm going to go back a year for this one. This gives me a good sample. It gives me that 40. I'm going to pull my results. And then I check them all and I go down here and I pull stats right here. So I've got to select all of these. And when I pull stats, it's going to show me stats for these homes. This is another thing that I print off and take with me to my listing presentation. So I pull tabular, and this gives us a snapshot of the neighborhood. So we have that historic sales price trend. And now I've got a snapshot of in the last year, we know what that median sales price was. It was at what, 507? And this breaks it down for me a little bit further for the last year. So I've got my active right here. Obviously there's only one, so all those numbers are going to be the same. There's 3 that are pending. I have a minimum, a maximum, and then the average there. And then square footage is on here. Again, you're bound to the information that agents put in there as far as how correct this is. And then, your pending and chauffeur backups are separated here. But I like looking at what our medians are here. And then sold in the last year, this median, this is showing us that 485 was the median in the last year. And that's because I'm going back 365 days. Just in 2020, it's bumped up to 507. And then I look at all. The other thing I look at here are days on market. So, and I like that they give you a minimum, a maximum, like down here in pending, we've got a minimum of 1 day, maximum of 7 days. That's pretty, this tells me you price your house right, this neighborhood, you're probably going to sell it pretty quick. Down here, we've got, again, every color of the rainbow, 0 to 174 days. I don't like looking at the average because it's really skewed. If you've got a single house that's sat on the market maybe for a year, it's going to skew those numbers horribly. So I like looking at our median, which is 4. So I know by looking at these overall, these big picture stats, I know kind of what's going on in the neighborhood. And sometimes I'll pull these not just for the neighborhood, but then I'll go and I'll pull them for the zip code, and I'll pull them for, depends on the neighborhood, but sometimes I'll look at elementary school or high school and really have a good sense going in of what the market looks like right now and be able to really educate them and show them the numbers. I'm a stats numbers geek. So I love pulling stats and looking at all this information. Trying to get caught up over here in chat and see if there are any questions. Daly, I think I answered your question when Pam asked. Howard asked if I ever take the price per square foot. I do that. I will look at price per square foot just to kind of see what the range is, and to make sure that we're falling kind of in line with whatever that range is, that we're not completely out of whack. So I will look at that, and I'll show you in a few minutes where I look at that. That I look at in Cloud CMA. Sometimes I'll sit, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll sit and just do manual calculations when I've got my comps. So let me go get my comps. We're gonna go back here. Let's get to our cart with our comps that we've got so far. I'm gonna hit view now, and this will take me into, here are our comps. So as I'm figuring price per square foot, I've got to go in here and look. I don't necessarily trust what I'm going to see in Cloud CMA because, again, you're bound to the information that agents have put in, which could be incorrect. So I always compare what is put in here with what I see over here in tax to make sure that I'm doing an apples to apples. I'll show you that in just a second, Emily. Good question. But I make sure that the numbers, this 1581, 672. Okay, I look at that. Oftentimes what I'll do, it depends on the style of the house. Split levels are challenging price per square foot. But oftentimes if I've got, story and a half, 2 stories, ranches, I just look at above grade and I'm comparing square footage for above grade. And then sometimes I'll pull a secondary average square foot with total. But really to compare apples to apples, above grade is what I like to look at on square footage when I'm looking at averages. Does anybody else have another thought on that? Emily asked a question, how did I gather these to put them in the cart? Let me go back to one of my searches here. We'll just go to this one. So as I was going through and looking for comps, as I check them, the ones that I want to use, I'm just doing an example here. I'm not going to really use these. If those are the comps that from this screen that I want to use, I go down here to carts. And then I find the cart that I want to put it in. If I don't have that cart created, I hit new cart here. We'll just put sample cart. And then I have to assign it to a contact. If you don't have a contact in here already, you can right here create new contact, and you've got to put in a first name, a last name, and an email address. On a lot of these carts, the email address that's put in is my email address. If I'm not sending stuff to them directly out of MLS, which I try not to do anymore. But you're required to put a first name, a last name, and an email address in there. But if I already have the cart in here that I want to, we'll put it under this test cart. My cart's created, and then I hit this add to button. And it adds these 3 listings into that cart. I love using the carts for CMAs because then I can go as I'm looking at the neighborhood, and narrowing down. Then I go look at the zip code. I look at school, all sorts of different screens that I'm looking at, and I've got one repository to put all of these houses in that I'm going to use for our CMA. So let's look now at what that looks like once you have your comps gathered. So here's my cart. These are the comps that I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and check all of these. I want to go to actions right here. I want to be at actions, and then it's magic. I just hit the Cloud CMA button, and it pulls over all of those MLS numbers for me. So I'm going to start up here. And name the report. Actually, I don't need to put the address in there. I'm going to put the date in, which is what I usually do, especially if I know that if they're not going to list for a long time. I try to date these reports so I know when I pulled this. So if I have to go back and look at it, I want to go back and see what I presented. I know the date that I pulled this report. You could also put that down here in private notes. Client wouldn't see that in private notes. I'm going to put my subject property in here. As I start typing, it'll autocomplete for me here. This is my address. So it's auto-populated. It's come in from tax records. If I want to change this, I want to add that it's 2.5 baths. I can add a photo here if I want a photo of the picture or a photo of the house. and then it's residential. You can do a property subtype now. This is new. They haven't had this before, which I'm not going to select because we don't have a property subtype. Here's our advanced info. If we click on this little caret, come down here and compare. This says it's a 1-car garage, and it is not. It's a 2-car garage. The MLS area is 320. Our subdivision is Corinth Hills. And it's a side-by-side split. So again, on this page, I work from left to right, kind of top to bottom here. Name the report, put in the subject property information. And then down here, this is an either or down here. So I've already done my research. I know what comps I want used. I don't want the system to pull comps for me. So I'm going to use, look at this line here. This is an or line. It's pulled in my comps from MLS that I clicked. All of those comps pulled over for me. If I hadn't done that, and I just want to pull kind of a quick CMA just to see the neighborhood real quick and have it be in a pretty format, I might use this over here. And again, I can go through and I can have the system, if I click this button, the system will automatically pull listings for me. And I can say how many listings I want pulled, how far back I want to go, and then under more criteria, I can narrow down and say, okay, I just want, 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I always leave square footage, lot size blank, and then I can also bracket by price. That way it's not pulling in things. Again, we've got an area that has every color of the rainbow in terms of price. So if I'm doing the quick and dirty over here and having it fetch listings for me, I probably want to put price in. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with stuff all over the board. But we've already done our research and we've got our listings that we want used. So I'm going to hit fetch listings. And then I come to this screen where it shows me up here at the top, we've got our map. This is our subject property right here in the purple. I'll zoom in a little bit. But here's our purple right here. And I can see the houses that we've pulled in from the neighborhood. This is a pretty big neighborhood. It's oftentimes separated by, you see row here. It's kind of a natural separation of the neighborhood. So you'll oftentimes see some of the higher priced houses over here in this section of the neighborhood. But I say that, but it varies drastically. There could be some that pop over there. This is the active that I pulled in that was in Prairie Fields. It's not in Corinth Hills. That was the one that we went out and found when we were doing the zip code search. So those are all color coded. Our actives are the green. Those in backup are the blue, and then the reds are, solds are my reds. So down here is our subject property. And this is where we can set the price. So if I want to tell them that I think we could list let's say 450 to 460. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go 445 to 455. A lot of people have different opinions on when they give a owner valuation on a house. I typically try to give them a range. I know that they're immediately going to go to the top of the range. But I try to give them a range. And the reason that I do that is I explain to them that, it's right now, the market that we're in, it's darn near impossible to absolutely pinpoint your list price until we're ready to list. So if I'm going in there today just to give a listing presentation, to give them a census to value, I know they're not going to list for a couple months. I don't want them holding me to an exact figure. So I try to give them a range, and they're the ones that set the price. They take the information and the knowledge that I educate them with, and they're the ones that ultimately set the price. But I try to give them a range, and then I have reasons that I've given them the range. I might give them a range based on some things that they need to do to the house, and tell them, okay, the reason I've got this range is at the bottom of this range is as it sits today. The top of the range is if you do a fresh coat of paint, some fresh carpet, etc. So there are times where I might give them a range for that purpose as well. If I want to put those into figures, I don't use this very often, but I just want to show you this feature in Cloud CMA. right here, this price guide and net sheet, if I drop this down, this gives me a price guide. So Howard was asking about price per square foot. And right here, it gives you a general, again, you're bound to the information that the agents have put in MLS, and we know that some of this is not correct, but it gives us a general of all the comps that I pulled in, what was the average price per square foot? It was 182. That's probably about right on for this. So this has a suggested range of 281 to 299 according to Cloud CMA, which I don't agree with. I don't know how it came up with that range. It's a little wonky. But down here, you can put in expenses. So I could come up here and put, you know, 460. I think I put one too many zeros. There we go, 460, and then put, you know, it needs a new roof. If I'm going to put this in, I better know what I'm talking about, though, which is why I don't use this. I don't know how much a roof is going to cost on this thing. And I don't want to spitball figures to them, not having any idea what some of these upgrades or improvements might cost. So I do it a little different. I don't put things down here. I put the range up here, and then we talk kind of in detail about the improvements they could make to alter this range. Does that make sense? Any questions you all have? Or thoughts on how you do it a little different?
All of their ranges are weird. The active and the sold, they're all terrible, the suggested range.
They are really strange. Really strange. Here's why. They're basing it off square footage. That's why you can't price a house, which I think is what, let me get out a calculator, but I'm almost positive what they are doing is taking 182 times, yep, that's what they're doing. They're basing it all off price per square foot. Again, we have to be smarter than the computers. They only go so far. All right. So here I've got a summary. I'll just kind of keep going here. If anybody has anything to interject, feel free to unmute yourself or throw it in chat. I've got summary of the comps that I pulled in. And then down here are details on the comps that were up there on the map. So I have the ability here, I'm going to show you kind of some of the bells and whistles of Cloud CMA as we go on. I like looking at this the way that I look at MLS. And so I want to sort it by, where is it? Status. Now I've got sold at the top. I'm going to flip this little toggle right here, and it'll sort it the opposite direction. So I like seeing my actives, then my under contracts, and now my solds. How many, for those of you on the call that have done a lot of comps or done some comps, how many do you usually pull in per status? I'd love to get some variance on opinions here. If you want to throw it in chat, you're welcome to. I used to pull in a lot more solds and have realized over the year, the more information, the more I pull in, the more confusing it gets for the seller. So I really try to hone it down. Less is more oftentimes, unless I've got a good reason to pull in more comps. Emily says she does 3 comps for actives, 3 pendings, and 3 solds. That I would agree with that. I wish I could have found a couple other under contract and actives, but we've got this huge void in this price range in this market. Patty says same, 3 to 4 for each category. I typically try to pull less. I like to have 3 to 4 in the under contract and sold, and 1 or 2 in active. Unless there's, again, a good reason to, if there's some really good comparisons that are sitting in active that I can show them, those are their direct competition. And again, I tell them those have been rejected by the marketplace. There's a reason. And sometimes that helps me justify what I think the range should be versus what they think the range should be. Howard asked a question, do we do anything different than looking at comps for land? Yeah, it's a lot different when you look at land. I am not a land expert. I don't know if anybody on the call, I'm looking at our participants here, do a lot of land. But with land, you're going to look at a much different set of criteria. With land, you're going to price it by, you know, your price per acre. You've got to look at utilities, what improvements are on it, what utilities are on it. It's a much different animal than residential. Annie agrees. She thinks less than 10 listings total for a seller to digest. I used to, oh my gosh, when I first started, I was a mess. I used to go into a listing appointment with, you know, a ream of paper printed off with all of these different MLS sheets. I'd have my listing presentation and I would completely overwhelm the seller. And I realized that if I do the research ahead of time, I don't need to take 8,000 MLS sheets with me. I need to make it digestible for the sellers to understand. But I need to do all that research because I need to be knowledgeable about what I'm talking about when I'm sitting at their kitchen table. Howard asked another question, a house that's fully gutted and retrofitted. How would you go about pricing that? So are you talking about just a fully updated, down to the studs, complete remodel? I try to find some apples to apples comparisons with that. And they're out there. There's a lot of investors that are buying property and doing that. Oftentimes when you get into some of those, I call them oddities. They're not necessarily oddities. They're the outliers. You've got to go beyond the neighborhood to get your apples to apples comparison, but they're out there. And you can definitely find them. Yeah, Michelle says you can search with the remarks. You can search your remarks with using asterisks. And you can put in keywords like remodel or, you know, renovated. You know, as you're looking at MLS and looking at those types of homes, try to find common words that are used, and then you can do an MLS search with those. But there's definitely, I mean, it takes a while to dig through and, you know, find your comps for even a common property. It's going to take even longer if you've got an outlier or an oddity, but you can find them. I cheated on this CMA because I've already gone in and looked at comps, so I knew which ones we were likely going to use. Normally, I would spend several hours in there dissecting houses, but you all watching me go through MLS is probably not the most exciting thing ever. So I tried to shorten this as much as I could and kind of condense it down. Okay, so on our listings over here, I want to go back to the screen over here. Our listings, I've got it sorted how I like it. I typically don't spend a whole lot of time on this page. Typically, all I'm doing at this point is putting in my range if I have one, and then just making sure I've got these sorted the way that I want them. If there's something that I've missed, if there's an MLS number that I'm like, where's that one that I wanted to pull in? Right down here, I can hit add listing. And this too is where I could put in a for sale by owner. So if I knew there was a for sale by owner that just sold a couple doors down and I had some information on that, I could put that information right in here. This is one of the things I love about Cloud CMA is I can put some off-market data in here. None of these are required fields, so I don't have to have all this information. It's going to be helpful to have it all, but I can even include a description down here, which is nice. Or I can add a listing up here by MLS number. If I've got an MLS number that I forgot, I can add it right on the screen. I do want to show you up here in details and adjustments real quick with each listing. You've got this, again, it's kind of hard to see, but you've got this little details and adjustments. And if I pull that down, it's going to pull up the full property detail for me here. This is kind of cool. I know a lot of us, you know, for my research and whatnot, Cloud CMA is what I show the clients, but you know, I've got my MLS sheets with my handwritten notes on them. I can take those notes and put them right into here. So in the description, this is fully, I can edit this. I can take out what the agent said and I can put my own notes as to how I think this compares to the subject property. Any updates they've done, I can take out the creative writing. Oops. We're gonna not save that. because I want it to show up. But I can add to the beginning of the description. Let me do this real quick. Okay, good. I can come in here and take out their creative writing and just have kind of the gory details. I can add to this. I can put my own personal notes in here. And then down here, everybody does a CMA a little different. I'm going to tell you how I do it, but there are probably people on the call that do it a little bit different, and I would invite them to chime in on this. I don't do adjustments. There are some agents that do adjustments. So they come in and they say, okay, let's go to a house that has sold. They come and look at this house that has sold and they say, okay, this was a 3-bedroom. This was a 3-bedroom, right? Where are my bedrooms? No, that was a 4-bedroom. Here's a 3-bedroom right here. So they're going to make an adjustment here on the 3-bed. This is only 3 bedrooms. Our subject property has 4. So I'm going to say 4th bedroom, and I'm going to add value to this property. How in the heck do I come up with this value? I'm not an appraiser. I have a spreadsheet that was given to me 10 years ago from an appraiser on how they value some of these, how they value garage spaces, bedrooms, bathrooms. But I'm not an appraiser. That's not my area of expertise. So I have a hard time, this is why I don't make adjustments. I have a hard time coming in here and starting to make adjustments to purchase prices. If this house at face value, from what I can see, sold at 420, why do I need to come in and make an adjustment? I know from looking at this, looking at all the details that I can see, looking at the tax records, the history, the photos, the seller's disclosures, I can get a good sense as to how my subject property compares with this one that sold at 420. And that's the knowledge that I use when I come up with their range. So I don't feel like coming down here and making adjustments. I don't feel like I need to do that. I've already made my adjustments as I've gone through these in MLS. These are what I've used to justify what my range is. I hope that makes sense. But I find it really hard for me to come in and make adjustments on a property that I've never walked into. And to try to act like an appraiser here by making adjustments, because I'm not an appraiser. But you can do that. I know there are people on the call that make adjustments and are comfortable with that and have a completely different point of view. And it's not right or wrong or indifferent. That's all personal preference and what you feel comfortable with. So do any of you on the call do adjustments, and do you want to talk about how you do those? Anyone? All right. Hopefully I didn't scare you. Howard asked, what about a house with a pool in the neighborhood with few pools? Is that a plus or minus? Oh gosh, that's a $1 million question, Howard. It depends. A lot of it's going to depend on your price point. A lot of it is going to depend on the style of the house. Excuse me. Hold on one second. I need a sip of water. You got me all choked up. This pool question. You know, I found that, like I said, oftentimes it's going to depend on your price point, and who your demographic is for the house. I would say, and this is my opinion and a very general statement, but most people that have young kids or going to have young kids really would prefer not to have a pool, so they look at it as a negative. There are people that don't want the upkeep and the maintenance cost that comes along with a pool. And then there's another, demographic that would love to have a pool. That's what they want. I think the demographic in our market that wants a pool is slimmer in most price points, unless you get up into the upper ranges. Most people that want the upkeep and want a pool that are in kind of our, I'd say our average, price point, pool probably tends to be more of a negative than a positive in terms of price. Anybody else have a thought on that, or disagree, or agree with that? Okay, you all are quiet today. All right, so I'm going to keep moving on here. I'm going to collapse all of these because I'm not going to go in and do any details and adjustments. We're not going to add another listing. Again, by the time I get over to Cloud CMA, I've done all my research. So I don't spend a whole lot of time on this page unless I've forgotten something and I need to add it in. But I wanted to show you kind of what your options are once you get over here. So we're going to go on to our next step, which you can see right up here. You've got 4 steps with a Cloud CMA. You've got our criteria, which we are already on. This is where I input. That was this screen. That's our criteria screen. And then we've got our listing screen. And next we're going to go to customize. And customize is where you're going to build your report. Now, I will tell you, I've done, and I recorded a full Cloud CMA class. I've done a lot of customizations in Cloud CMA. I love Cloud CMA because of its ability to customize. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time today teaching you how to customize CMAs or Cloud CMA, excuse me. If you want that, go watch the Cloud CMA class or catch a live one coming up. But I'll show you a couple things in here that will save you time. So over here on the, I'm just going to kind of tell you functionality here on this page. So this is the content that you can add into your report. Right now, this is my default. This is what I have coming into this report, which is not a whole lot. So under here is the additional pages beyond this and sections that I can add to this report. I'm going to start clicking down on these and you're going to start seeing how many options you have here, and it's going to get overwhelming really quick, and I'm trying not to overwhelm you too much. I will tell you, ignore these down here. These you have to pay for, which you don't need. Everything that you need is up here in standard. So the introduction section has title page, a cover letter, agent resume, a little bit about our company, and then what is a CMA. By the time I'm doing a CMA for a client, doing this step, I don't need a lot of the fluff. If I want to see what these pages look like, as I hover over them, there's a little eye right there. If I click on that, it'll show me what the title page looks like. I have uploaded, I did in Canva a custom report cover and downloaded it into a PDF and put it in Cloud CMA, and that's what I use for my report. The reason I do that is because if I go in and I'm competing with somebody, I'm going to have a completely different look and feel to my report just because of the cover. So this is my default cover that I've uploaded. And again, if you want to learn how to do that, check out the Cloud CMA class that I've done. But this is what my cover looks like. I've kept it generic. I have my name, company name up there, picture, and then your home valuation report. That's what I put at the front of all of my Cloud CMAs. But you've got all these different options there in the introduction section, and then the setup section. This is a map of all listings. So these are the comps. If I want this pretty page included in my report, I'm going to click the plus button and it's going to move it over here. We've got our analysis section. I'm going to do something for you really quick. I'm going to move all of these over and start with a blank. I'm clicking on this red delete to get them off of here. So right now, all I have in my report is my cover. That way you can see all the options over here. Yeah, go ahead.
Cover, was that, to go back and find it, that was really an awesome cover, by the way. Is that in your Canva class or is that in your Cloud CMA class? Where you show how to make that?
Canva, I don't really teach how to make it in Canva, although I can.
But you show how to move it and locate it in here?
Yes. In the Cloud CMA class, I show you how to put what you've made in Canva. And you don't have to make it in Canva. You could do it in Publisher. You could do it in PowerPoint. It needs to be an 8.5 by 11.
Okay. And you just, okay.
Yeah. And you save it as a PDF. And then in the Cloud CMA class, I show you how to upload it here and get it into your reports.
Okay, cool. Very classy looking.
Thank you. I need to change it because that picture I'm using now shows up everywhere because it was on a free website. Okay, so right now the only thing I have over here in my report is my cover page. So now all those sections I had are sitting back, nested back up under here. So my introduction, I like having a contact me page, so I'm going to add that one. I put that at the very end though. I'm just dragging those and I can reorder them. We're going to do that in a minute. I don't use the agent resume. You can, these are pages that you come into Cloud CMA and customize. These are pre-built pages that you can customize. If it's somebody I don't know, if it's my initial listing appointment, my step one, I usually include some of the fluff, and I'd consider this fluff. At this point, we've decided to move forward and work together. Under the setup, I like the map of all listings and the summary. Analysis, the analysis chapter, these are just divider pages, which I kind of like because it keeps your CMA organized. So I like that page being in there. I love this one. This is one you want to include. This is the online valuation analysis. Let me pull this up. So this shows them what Zillow, if you've got somebody that's really, you know, tied into, they think they need to price their house exactly how Zillow has it priced, show them this page. This shows them based on the comps that I've pulled in, it shows how accurate, and this one's actually really accurate, which is incredible, that Zillow is accurate. They were within 0.4% with their estimate. So here it tells them what the price is and then what the estimate was. This is not good information because you can tell the estimate, they've gotten really fancy. The estimate is now changing to whatever the list price is. Interesting. This one, it's off by $2. It's crazy. Down here, you've got sold prices. There, you've got a little bit more variance.
So then would you use it?
I've never seen that before. Yeah, I'd still use it.
Okay.
But I like that page. I like my suggested list price. This is where that range that I put in, this is where that comes up here on this page. Seller net sheet I don't include because I didn't put that information in for them. I do like these, sorry, skip down. I do like those in there. So that's the analysis section. We've got the closing section. This is a lot of the fluff. I'm not crazy about the fluff that's in Cloud CMA. It's a lot of words on a page and I like graphics. This one's not bad, but again, it's a lot of words down here. There are some that are like crazy with the amount of text that they put on a page. And I don't think they're the best graphics. I've updated my marketing action plan in Cloud CMA, so I do include that. That's what that looks like. So we're going to add that one over. Like the staging your home one, this one. I'm like, use pictures. No one's ever going to read that. Show me some before and after pictures. Oh, this is a new section. I've never even seen this one. Listing, that's why it's blank. This is what a custom that you've got to go in and customize. That's why it has a little edit next to it, but that's kind of cool. That's new. That's our closing section. Testimonials. Cloud CMA does sync with Real Satisfied. It syncs with Zillow, Rated Agent, all these other testimonial platforms. So I use Real Satisfied. So I always come down to the testimonial section and I add my Real Satisfied agent ratings. Let me show you what that page looks like. It shows the most recent testimonials up there and then it shows your star ratings. And then down here, custom pages. These are the pages that I have put in here. This is where my cover normally would sit, but I already have it pulled over here. So once you have your pages over here, the sections that you want, the information that you want, you can now drag and drop these and reorder them. So now my report cover is all the way down here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it, and I want that to be the first page. And then once I get these in the correct order, let me show you a little tip here. Again, I teach this in detail in the Cloud CMA class. This will save you a boatload of time in the future. I will tell you when I get to the Cloud CMA, after I've gone through Matrix, I spend hours in Matrix. Once I get to Cloud CMA, it takes me 5 minutes to have an unbelievably professional report because I've gone through and I know exactly how I want my reports to look, and then I save them as templates. So I'm going to show you really quick what that looks like. So once you have all of your pages that you want on a normal report, under templates, you can save what you've done right here. So save as a template, and I could save this as, I'm just going to save it as a test template so I know later to go back and delete it because I've not ordered it the way I like it. So once that's saved as a template, every time I come through these pages up here, after I get through the listings and I come to customize, all I have to do is go here. I don't have to mess with all of the stuff that we just went through. I click on test template, or I click on template, and I go to custom. These are all the templates I've saved. And here's my 220 valuation report. I know that's what I like using. This is all the stuff that I've pulled over from there in the right order, how I like it. So when I come and get on this page, it takes me about 30 seconds because I click on my template, I do my 2020 valuation report, and then I hit publish and I'm done. You do have a couple of options over here. I've got mine set up already, but the first time you come in here, you might want to come in and mess around. I recommend, highly recommend, watch the Cloud CMA class and then come in here and start messing around and getting your Cloud CMA set up. So when you come in to do an actual report, all of this stuff is already done for you. But you've got some options up here. One of the things I love about Cloud CMA is a customization, and these are all customizations up here. So on theme, I use a modern green theme. You have tons of color options. If you want your colors to be red and blue, because you're a big Jayhawk fan, you can have red and blue. I tried to pick something that was complementary to BHG. I'm going to tell you something real quick. There is a template up at the top that is a branded BHG template, but I'm going to show you what happens if you select this. If you select this one, come on, it changes the pages and the sections that you have access to. If you do the BHG branded one, it pulls in the national listing presentation. So look at how this changed over here, and all of a sudden I've got all sorts of different stuff. This is now, if I click on these, this is the national listing presentation. Some of you might want this. It's not bad stuff. I don't use it. I use my own stuff. But if you choose the BHG branded one, your report's going to be branded for you. But you've got difference in the options that you have. All of these are every page that's in the national listing presentation. So I recommend come in here and play with this. Publish one of, see how many pages are here? This is insane. Come in here and play with this. Publish reports, see what they look like. You know, start doing some customization in here and then save your template. Save all your selections. So when you come in here to do a real CMA, it's only going to take you several minutes. I'm going to go back to my, does anybody have questions before I go away from this page? I'm going to go back to my normal theme. I hope I'm not getting too far into the weeds with Cloud CMA with you all. Okay, I'm going to go back to my modern green. I like the way this one looks. We're going to publish this report in a second. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So I need to go back to my default again. Get my pages that I like. Up here, the next customization you have is layout. This is how you want the listings to display. So I'm going to show you right now what mine looks like. I like it displayed like this, where I've got the first picture and then a map. If you want it displayed different, you can have it, this is what I have, the picture and the map. This would give you the first two pictures that are MLS. This is picture only. This is if I'm doing a ton of listings, if I'm pulling in a ton of comps, I might not want this thing to be 80 pages. So you can put multiple comps per page. You could have the option of doing 2, 3, or 4. I'll just show you real quick what that looks like. This is a 4-column view. So now I've got my subject property and I've got my comps side by side. So again, this is all personal preference, personal preference. I like mine, I like the photo and the map. Let's show you something else that's going to save you a boatload of paper. Down here in the listing section, I've got my details. I showed you what that page looks like. And then the next page is going to be the photos. These pull in from MLS. So I love how this page looks, by the way. It's got the address up here, the MLS number, your gory details, and then this is the first 12 pictures that are in MLS. If you select this one, more photos, all the rest, if you've got a comp that has 99 pictures, you're going to have 8,000 pages in your CMA, in your listing presentation. So be careful about the photos, all the rest, because this can take your presentation from being 35 pages to 85 real quick. So I typically take that one out. Here, I've got no cover selected because I use my custom cover. But if you click on, this is how I got the idea to do a custom cover. Again, on the covers, if you click on this, you've got to pay for all of these. And hi, you can create this so easy and make it look a whole lot better. We don't live on a beach, so it'd look weird if you showed up to listing presentation, you've got a beach. And then you can change here your default font. So if you want, I use Lato because that's one of our brand fonts. So, and I think it's a very easy font to read. So that's the font that I have selected. So once I have my report kind of laid out how I want it, last thing I'm going to do is hit Publish Report. And then this is going to create my report for me. You can see it loading right up here. This is the main CMA report page. So these are all old CMAs that I've done. So if you've got to come back and pull up an old one, they all sit in this main Cloud CMA page. I like how when you menu over it, you can see when you did this. Okay, so our report is done loading. I'm going to hit View PDF. So this report is 35 pages. And let's take a look, and I can kind of just breeze through it real quick and show you what this report looks like, what I'm going to present to the seller. Oh, I didn't realize the fluff piece was in there. Well, there it is. My analysis section. I must have messed up that template. Oh, well. There's that online valuation page. I like the way this lays out. So this is a summary of the comps that are going to be included next. So this gives them kind of an overview before we go into detail. And then it gives them the map view and then details on each of the comps. And then we go into the individual pages for each of these. Again, this is now laid out and ordered the way that I ordered them on that listings page. So I'm going to have my actives first, then my under contracts and my solds. Here are the additional pictures, that page that I just showed you a second ago. I'm trying not to make you sick by going through these, scrolling too fast here. Get down here past all these comps. So here's a summary of all of the sold properties. I like that Cloud CMA pulls my solds out and gives me analysis on sold. That's how I'm going to value a house, is based on sold. I have no idea the ones that are under contract, the ones that are active. I have no idea what those are going to end up selling for. You base your valuation on the solds. That's what appraisers are going to look at. So I like that Cloud CMA pulls this out. So you can kind of do a comparison, what's active under contract, but then you've got this page that pulls out your sold data. Here it shows, you know, the average list to sales price. I think this is clean. It's easy for sellers to read. It's easy for them to understand. And then down here, it talks about the valuation, and then it goes into the suggested list price. And then the comparison based on that. It looks like we are so out of whack with this cost per square foot. I hate cost per square foot. And then here's my marketing action plan that I put into Cloud CMA. And then I like the contact me page at the very end. If I get to this and realize, oh, I pulled out too many fluff pieces in, I don't want those pieces. I'm going to close this PDF and I go back here to edit, and then I can come back in here. I can skip right to my customize, and I can take things out that I want taken out. If I want that agent resume gone, it's gone. If there's something I forgot to add in, I can come back and make changes here, and then you just hit publish report again. I'll tell you, when I first started using Cloud CMA, I would probably publish and then edit reports 5 times to get it exactly how I wanted it. That's when I started saving those templates. So then when I get ready to share this with my client, again, I do a 2-step process. So oftentimes I sit down with them, I give them the big dog and pony show, and then I'm pulling together. I come back and I'm going through this process where I'm really pulling into MLS and getting my apples to apples comparison. So when I get to my second step, I've already given them the big listing presentation, and I want to get this in their hands as quickly as possible. You've got some awesome options here to send this to them. You can, if you click right here on the 3 dots, copy the PDF link. This is how I do it. Copy PDF link, and then I go over to my email, and I'm going to paste it. I come back over to Cloud CMA, and I'm going to copy my slideshow link. And I come over here and I paste my slideshow link. And I am going to show you what one of these looks like when I send it to a client. Oh, I spelled that wrong. There they are. Oh, I need to go to sent. Sorry. Give me just a second here. Keep spelling it wrong. It is AEU. Okay. Sorry, I'm having a moment here. Nope, it's still not there. What the heck? Oh, it's not letting me pull it up. So I'll just tell you, I send a pretty comprehensive email to them explaining to them how I got to my range. You know, I bullet point some things. I talk about, you know, bullet the comparables, what I saw. And then I send them, I say, here's a link to the slideshow. Here's a link to the full report. This is to let them digest things before I can go back and sit down with them and go through it. There are times where I don't email this and I'm just going back the next day to sit down with them and talk to them about everything. And in that case, I would print. But I kind of like sending it to them in advance for them to be able to digest it a little bit. And then we have a conversation about their thoughts. This slideshow option is really pretty cool. I want to show you what this looks like. So when you send this to them via email, they can click through the slideshow and it kind of gives them highlights on your Cloud CMA, your valuation. So, you know, we've got basic information at the bottom right here is where my controls are to menu through this online slideshow. My contact information, you've got map of the listings, then you go into the sold homes, and if I go down on this, I like that they can click on these and look at the menu through the pictures. It gives them the details up here. They can go down even further and see more pictures. It gives them kind of the gory details up here at the top. Again, this is just kind of highlights of the CMA that you've pulled for them. Gives them an average here of our solds, of our actives, little analysis, my suggested list price, what our next steps are, and then the thank you. Oh, and here's a link to the full 34 pages. I love that feature. I love the video, especially for my people that are the type A, they don't want all the details. They're the show me the baby, don't tell me about the birth people. All right, what questions do you have? I know I just covered a ton of stuff, but tell me what questions you have.
Christian, this is Pam. When you send the link, are they ultimately accessing Cloud CMA then?
No, they can't, they're just accessing a static PowerPoint, like that slideshow is static.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they click to link to the full PDF, that's just a PDF view. They're not actually accessing Cloud CMA.
Okay. Some of that internet magic I don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Thank you.
So, but you've got a couple different options, a couple different ways to present the information once you have it pulled together. So that's just one way to do it, with sending the slideshow or sending the link so they can download and look at the full PDF. Oftentimes, you know, as often as possible, you want to sit down belly to belly with them to go through it and kind of explain it to them. You know, it depends on the client, depends on how quickly you're trying to get this information back to them, on whether or not, you know, for me, it depends on those factors as to whether or not I'm going to email it to them or go back and sit down with them. Any other questions that you all have before we adjourn here? I appreciate you all hanging in there. I know this probably wasn't the most exciting class, but I appreciate you hanging in, and hopefully you learned something. And like I said, I know that I went really fast today. I did record this. I'm going to do some separate videos on how to pull those reports in MLS. And then, you know, if you want more in-depth on Cloud CMA, watch the Cloud CMA class. And I've got some resources that are built into that class that I'm happy to share with you as well. I've got kind of a PDF printout of the pages that I like to use. I think it helps to start with something in Cloud CMA because it can be overwhelming when you go in there and start customizing those reports. But I've got resources for you. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need some of those.